Well, hey, welcome everybody, and I really appreciate the SANS organization for letting me talk about the Gula Tech Foundation, Gula Tech Adventures, what we're doing with neurodiversity. This talk is really in two different areas. Just it's going to be a brief overview of the work we've done to date in cybersecurity, and then we're going to talk about the finalists for the winners of our $1 million grant. So the foundation, basically, it's an effort that my wife and I, Cyndi, started. I'm the one on the left, Cindy's the one on the right. We worked a lot at Tenable Network Security. I was the CEO and CTO. Cyndi had a really key role there. And because we were like a husband and wife team, you don't really put that on the front page of a a public cyber company and whatnot. So Tenable's gone on to go public and whatnot. And what we did is we founded Gula Tech Adventures and the Gula Tech Foundation. The foundation we've always been philanthropic, but the focus of everything Gula Tech has been cybersecurity. The foundation does competitive grants. We were going to do 4 a year. We ended up doing twice a year. And what I'm going to call them as socially focused grants. I'm going to go through the first few grants we did. The one that we're doing now, though, is a $1 million grant to cybersecurity nonprofits that are focusing on neurodiversity. And we are going to announce the winners of these grants at the RSA conference coming up here at the end of the month. We talked about triggering. I'm only going to trigger people at SANS for talking about RSA and talking about one of our portfolio companies, Cyber, that does training. But one of the things that we found is that, unlike the other grants that we've did, which I'll go through here in a little bit, autism, ADHD, other forms of neurodiversity, it's not the type of thing that people just kind of come pouring out and basically talk about, right? I usually get tapped on the shoulder like, hey, it's really good you're doing that grant. By the way, my uncle's son is autistic, or I worked with somebody who was autistic. So when you think about all the great social problems that challenge the cybersecurity industry, things like diversity, getting more women involved, getting more African Americans, getting minorities in general, getting boards, I'll talk about all that. Autism doesn't rank up there with the number one thing we got to fix. But the goal of Cyndi and I with Gula Tech is to get everybody involved in the fight to protect our data and to keep China and Russia out of our networks and whatnot. So we don't do it ourselves. We've got a number of employees at Gula Tech Adventures. We also have a grant committee. The way we do it is we run an application process, and we try to keep it simple. I spent a lot of time talking to other foundations who do grants, and we just wanted to minimize everybody's overhead. And so we've got a pretty diverse grant committee. They're the ones who do the voting. They select the winners. And we do a little bit of triage, just make sure that everybody's, we focus US, we want to make sure it's an applicable grant or a grant application. And one of the things you'll see with nonprofits is that, nonprofits are businesses just like any other business. They have to have a board, they have to operate, they have to do that. But one of the things we'll find, no matter what social cause we're kind of looking at, is that you'll see other sort of non-neurodiversity focused organizations who want to expand into neurodiversity, and then you'll see some specific neurodiversity ones. So we'll talk about that. Gula Tech Adventures, I kind of talked about it. We're kind of like a cybersecurity hub. We do investing, we do philanthropy, we do a lot of policy work. And this is kind of the focus of us. So we don't think cyber is just a tool, a vendor, a person, or a government program. We think it's all really, really related. And we think neurodiversity is really much part of that. One of the things that we push when we talk to people is that we try to communicate a lot. So if you like what you're seeing here, pretty much white dude with gray hair talking about that, you can come to our blog and our website, where we talk about a wide variety of different issues. And these issues really are talking to the core of cybersecurity. So I've done comments on the national cybersecurity strategy. I've done comments on, the role of Microsoft, for example, in cybersecurity and so on. So we try to live with that. But the thing that I hope you take away, besides just what we're doing in the neurodiversity area today, is this concept of data care. When we did our first few grants, and I'll walk you through them in a minute, one of the things that we got feedback from is that people who are in cybersecurity and they talk about cybersecurity and they live cybersecurity, they have a hard time communicating on the outside. And that's not autism, that's not ADHD, that's like people in cyber, right? A lot of acronyms, a lot of interesting concepts, a lot of, look, if you didn't come through the information security ranks over the last 15 years, you kind of have a lot to catch up on. So we wanted to make cybersecurity more appealing to everybody, diversity, those with ADHD, those autism, those coming out of the military. And we also want to make it cybersecurity a more interesting concept for people to think about from a personal security point of view, whether it's your role on the board or your role in protecting, your iPhone. So we came up with data care. This is not copywritten. This is not something we charge. I made a logo because we're visual, and we use this and we push this to a lot of places because it's easier to talk to people. And what I would challenge you, if you're having a talk with somebody who's trying to get into this career field and they're like kind of hemming and hawing it, we tend to pitch cybersecurity as this very militaristic thing, right? We're gonna hunt, we're gonna defend, we're gonna engage the enemy on our networks, we're gonna red team, we're gonna do all that kind of stuff. That appeals to a certain segment of what's out there, but it doesn't appeal to everybody. And it certainly doesn't appeal to personal responsibility or getting more people in there. So this is a neurodiversity focused event, but this is something I've been using in a much broader sense. So the first few grants that we did were focusing on different social issues. And when we started this out, this is when we were coming out of some of the the Black Lives Matter activities from like 3 or 4 years ago. And we really, had done a lot of conversations with people, just like, why do we not, like, if we're so smart that we can reverse engineer Chinese malware, why are we not so smart to get more African Americans in that? So we did a grant, increasing African American engagement. We had 3 winners: Black Cybersecurity Association, Empower, and Girl Security. Every one of these mentioned some sort of neurodiversity or other types of diversity programs. And I think, although their focus was African American engagement. Empower, after they got the award, they actually presented at the White House on cyber workforce development. Another one, there was Girl Security. They actually taught young African American women about national security. So you're going to see, like, you're shooting for cyber, but you're seeing a lot of different folks, and we're going to see that when we get to the neurodiversity finalists as well. The second grant we did was a data care grant, again, putting out that data care there. And we wanted to increase cybersecurity awareness. And it turns out that, a lot of people in cybersecurity are very aware of cybersecurity, and those outside of it, really didn't have, like, how do I start? What does it do? And the 3 winners there were the Center for Infrastructure Assurance and Security, the Cybercrime Support Network, which is sort of like a 911 for people who have cyber crime issue, called 211, and then the National Cryptologic Foundation, which actually went after taking the data care message to senior citizens. My wife and I, Cyndi, we were just at the CISA, CIAS, not CISA, again, cyber with all their acronyms. We just went to their event in San Antonio. They have a couple interesting things they did with the grant. They made, if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, they have a cybersecurity deck where you teach K through 12 different aspects of cybersecurity. They also have mascots, which is kind of funny. This is Cybear, which is kind of interesting, and they had a program for neurodiversity as well. Third grant we did was one of the things we learned from the data care awareness was that a lot of people didn't have the tools to teach cybersecurity. And so we did a follow-up grant to that, which was allowing people to, teach in classrooms. There's a lot of teachers with content, but not teachers who had the ability and the confidence to do that. So we had 3 winners there. One of them, CodePath, went on to receive $3 million from one of the Microsoft founders. Every one of these programs had, again, a neurodiversity sort of element to it, where they were trying to engage and focus and try to engage that community. And finally, the last grant that we did was bringing cyber expertise to corporate governance. And this is actually why I'm wearing a tie today. I got to present on cybersecurity to a Fortune 200 company today. And the winners of these grants, the top winner was the Women's Business Collective. They partnered with the Digital Directors Network to basically offer the Qualified Technology Executive certification to 100 women. who are going to be either on boards or joining boards all across the country. So we had a pretty diverse group of winners. And this brings me back to the current grant and why we're here today. So, we thought about doing a grant just on autism. We thought about doing one on maybe more broader. And it gets really interesting. When I say broader, think about other ways you might not be, competitive with somebody who doesn't have any disadvantages. And we decided to go with neurodiversity, neurodivergent. We spent a lot of time looking at the words and looking at the right way to frame this. You would be surprised, trying to give away $1 million in a thoughtful manner, how it is that you might trigger somebody. You might actually be in a situation where you're alienating somebody that you want to participate, because we do want a large, diverse number of folks. And so the application process is real simple. You have to be an established nonprofit. You have to be in the US. And it was about maybe 15 questions, 5 of which are standard stuff. Who's on your board? How long have you been there? Are you a university? Do you have overhead? That sort of things. But really the what have you done and what would you do if you won questions are pretty good. And there's a lot of supplemental. So I am not a neurodiversity expert, but I really feel after, reading through our finalists and reading through all that, I've learned a lot different about what's out there. So one of the first rules I'll say about nonprofits is there's always a for-profit company in there somewhere. And whether it's a partner, it's a vendor. I mean, for-profit companies kind of get painted as evil vendors a lot, but almost every nonprofit that we dealt with in this space either did work with for-profits or was creating jobs with neurodiverse candidates to go into those corporations. And then again, lastly, I'm probably overusing the word trigger, but we are going to do the award ceremony for this grant at the RSA conference at the end of the month. So it's going to be on the Wednesday of that week. And if anybody's there, we're going to have about most of our grant committee is going to be there. And most of our winners are going to be there, multiple peoples, and some of the vendors that work with them are going to be there as well. And you'll be able to hear from the founders and directors of some of these nonprofits. So even though I know what the winners are, I am going to suspend the illusion of that and talk about our finalists right now in a random order. So the first finalist I want to talk about is the Diana Initiative. And this is a good example of a nonprofit organization that, their primarily focus is not neurodiversity. Their focus is minority and gender issues. But their grant application was very, very thorough and very, very thoughtful about expanding content for the neurodiverse. And with the Diana Initiative, it's sort of like a side conference to the DEF CON conference. So if you think about all the great conferences in the world, SANS puts on great conferences, you have RSA and Black Hat. And then almost next to those conferences, you've got something called B-Sides, you've got different types of conference. And the Diana Initiative is a conference that specifically talked about information security. And again, with the focus on minority and gender issues. And so they are a finalist. If anybody's going to Black Hat, you go into DEF CON, that's Las Vegas, it's gonna be later this year. They, just based on what I've seen in their application, they are going to have some interesting content. And if you're tracking this conference today, it might be something you want to put on your list of things to track. So we had 2 large universities become a grant finalist as well. And, when you think of donating money or competing grant to like these big giant universities that have, endowments and things like that, one of the things I've learned from all of our past grants is that, these universities, even though they're nonprofits and you could say that they are well-funded, they're bureaucratic, they're philanthropic, they're academic, whatever you want to say, they're not. I mean, if you are running a program inside a big university, you have to fight for those dollars. You have to show value. You have to show that. And one of the universities that won here in this case was the University of Central Florida. And when I say won, they won they were grant finalist. They basically have a program where they focus on autisms and related disabilities. That's another one of those, they didn't say neurodiverse, they said autism and related disabilities. But they have a program called, that program's called CARD. And what they do is they put individuals who have challenges through, computer science, electrical engineering, and cybersecurity. And they've touched over 100,000 students in the past 5 years, which is just amazing. It's another form of online help, in-person help. And they also work with Thrive DX. Thrive DX is not a portfolio company of Gula Tech, but it's a Night Dragon portfolio company. They're very focused on bringing cybersecurity training to academics, so that like bachelor's and master's programs in cybersecurity. Another company that's a finalist is Knowability. Now, as a technologist, I was very, very fascinated with this with this nonprofit, because what they do is they try to allow software programs, IT websites, distance learning, to basically support programs from people who've got a wide variety of issues. And it's not just neurodiversity, think blind, think deaf, that kind of thing. And so it's nonprofit, but they worked with a tremendous number of companies. And as a result of that, I should probably clarify that the grant, we purposely said we define cyber as the combination of IT and cybersecurity. So if it was a nonprofit that helped somebody with autism get an IT job, we were just as happy as if they got a cybersecurity job. But Knowability was very, very focused on enabling people to do a wide variety of IT functions with a wide variety of challenges. And this is a very interesting company. There's a lot going on here behind the. If you've ever had to set up a website and make it compliant for maybe people who can't see or read, this is the kind of stuff they do. But imagine doing that for Zoom and many other distance learning and even in-class types of things. So I was pretty excited to see that. Now I'm based in Maryland, and we had two Maryland finalists. One was Melwood, and Melwood, if you go to the website, they started out by helping people with disabilities, including autism, to become gardeners, to become arborists, to become people who maintained gardens. And they expanded into many other career fields, including IT. And so now they have a program called Ability, where it's a 14-week training program where they leverage cyber content, but it's more than just the content. They have a fairly immersive and engaging thing for folks with for autism and ADHD, and they basically produce fully qualified people who pass their certifications for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. And it's interesting because if you imagine you're trying to be thoughtful about picking finalists, picking grant winners, well, one of the things is just the brass tacks, right? Of, okay, how many people with autism are you going to help get into IT? Like, is it a volume thing? Is it a number of things? But we were pretty touched with this program because they basically 75% of everybody who went through, they got basically full-time employment or solid internment work. So we're very excited to see that, because it was pretty easy to kind of measure the success that they've had. The Miami-Dade College was the second university that's a finalist, and their program was a little bit different. It's not as broad as the previous university. This was more tailored, and they had basically been able to take four-year neurodivergent students. They kind of select them and put them through a program specifically focused on cybersecurity. And so this is a pretty unique program. Again, we're going more narrow here than the broad numbers we were talking about with broad electrical engineering, computer science, and cybersecurity. But we thought this finalist was also an interesting approach. Now, the mdcfoundation.com, there's not a lot of information on that. That's the other thing we found challenging with these things. Somebody would apply and they'd come from a university, and their URL is the university, right? Yet they have an amazing program with with faculty, and so, but because they live in a bureaucratic system, it's kind of hard to find these programs. But these 20, this is a newer program, but they've been graduating them and finding work for them as well. And these are 4-year or 2-year full degrees in cybersecurity. The second Maryland finalist was the Howard County Autism Society. So again, I said it was from Maryland. Maryland, we have the county system. Tenable was founded in Howard County. We live in Howard County. And we were always familiar with sort of the work of the Howard County Autism Society. And I was kind of surprised when they applied for the grant, because it was a bit more, I would say, generic, in that they did more, physical positions, not a lot of IT. But they actually said they had a program, and they're very detailed with the program, and they had done placements at companies in the area. And basically, Maryland is it's like a boulevard of cybersecurity companies working for Cyber Command and NSA and all the various subcontractors who work for the big contractors that are out there. So they'd done a good job of placing the graduates within IT and cybersecurity, and what I would say the either local IT or the national security type of programs. Again, we were pretty impressed with that, even though it was a local program. I believe our second to last finalist was Multiple. This is a California-based program where they took, basically they have a curated list of venture capitalists, founders, entrepreneurs, and the CISO community, that type of stuff, where they actively produce neurodiverse talent for a wide variety of organizations. And I just kind of listed them high level here. They were really specific about, they did AI work, they did think tank work. One of the things I know is that think tanks, the work I'm doing at Gula Tech, think tanks have a lot of influence over Washington politics, what kind of laws and policy would pass with cybersecurity, including diversity programs for getting the neurodiverse into into that fight against China and Russia. They are going to be producing a state of the industry report, which is one thing I haven't really seen, is just how many organizations that are out there who hire somebody with either identified as neurodiverse, specifically autism, specifically ADHD. I'd love to see a little bit more of that. But this is one of the more advanced programs that we've seen that also included, intelligence and think tanks beyond traditional cybersecurity. multiplehub.org. And our last grant finalist is the Precision Institute. Again, I was trying to do this not in alphabetical order, because usually anytime somebody did alphabetical order with Tenable, we were always at the bottom. So, the Precision Institute had a really, really advanced program for recruiting people with autism and other types of neurodiverse issues. And they were very specific about, look, if you put somebody who's got, autism, again, not going into the details of how much they did, are they going to complete the program? That was one of the things we found out, like, hey, you can set up programs all you want, but just to the nature of some of these conditions, you might not get as high a completion rate as you want. So they said one of the highest ones that we saw with the completion rate. And then, so great, now that you've completed, you've taught somebody, can you walk them into an interview? Can you walk them into a job? Can you walk them into a mentorship program? Do you have a relationship with a program that's out there? And they specifically called out UBS M&T Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and Exelon as programs where they had an active role in recruiting talent and filling some of their gaps with with folks from the this type of background. So, like I said, I'm sandbagging a little bit because we've kind of selected our winners. They're preparing to visit RSA. They're preparing to do like a 5-10 minute, sort of acceptance speech. So if you happen to go to the RSA conference, it'll be Wednesday, April 26th, and from 12 to 12:50. And I appreciate Sands, giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about that, even though it's we're all in this fight together, is the way I talk about it. But just two things I want to close on before we go out. So I think you're having a variety of vendors speak, and these folks are experts in recruiting and getting in there. But one program that came up was Bank of America. The CISO there, Craig, they've been pushing ADHD, autism, other types of neurodiversity there for a while. And I had a number of programs kind of reference the work they were doing there. And of course, Microsoft. I think Microsoft, I think they're doing the trying to walk that line of being a corporate behemoth, being responsible for a lot of cybersecurity, solutions and issues. But they're also doing quite a bit of work in this issue. And I thought it'd be good to call them out. So lastly, if you want to go, and if you missed any of those URLs, Sans permission to put these slides up, you can come to Gula.tech. We've got all the grant winners there, and we'll be publishing, we've got the grant finalists, and we're publishing the winners when we go to RSA. And if I could leave, everybody with anything, I would say, try to pull data care into your repertoire when you're talking about any type of cybersecurity issue, including neurodiversity issues. And I would just like to thank SANS for the opportunity to talk about our foundation. Cyndi couldn't join us today, but normally we do this as a husband and wife team. And anybody who's on this and they come to the party, I'm sorry, the event at RSA, I can invite you to our party we have that evening at RSA. So thank you very much.